Tonkatsu is the ultimate East meets West comfort food. Crispy, golden, and unbelievably juicy. I'll show tips for that perfect crust every single time and a sauce so good you'll seriously want it on everything. Because food isn't just flavor, it's connection. And with the right techniques, you'll make meals worth remembering. First though, there are two essentials you simply cannot skip. Sound good? Let's cook. Green cabbage is an absolute staple in this dish, and it's best served thinly sliced. So let's cut the head of a cabbage in half, then in half again, and then remove the core. We'll get quite a bit out of just this quarter cut. Now I'm going to use a mandolin because of how consistent I can get the cut. And again, we want this as thin as possible. It's more tender, easier to chew, and better at absorbing flavors. Cabbage was originally added to this dish to help cut the fatty pork and act as almost like a refresher and digester. And when on that mandolin, you know me, I stop when I start to get nervous. And well, I'm there. Also, if you want to hone those knife skills, grab your chef knife and thinly slice. But the mandolin is definitely easier. Let's transfer the cabbage over to a large bowl, and I have an awesome technique to make this super crispy. But it doesn't happen until right before serving it. And if you want to spice up the cabbage even more, you would commonly see it served up with a light dressing like a sesame vinaigrette. And you can grab that recipe at the link to my website in the top corner. For now, let me show you how easy it is to make the classic tonkatsu sauce. In a large bowl, I'm adding in 6 tablespoons of Worcester sauce, 6 tablespoons of ketchup, 1 tablespoon granulated sugar, 1 tablespoon of tahini, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, and finally a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Whisk everything together until it's combined, and then of course, try it out. How else are you supposed to know what things taste like and at which stage? It should have a sweet, tangy, and savory flavor. Honestly, kind of like barbecue sauce. But of course, you could simply purchase pre-made tonkatsu sauce. And the sauce is definitely widely used. You can pick it up on Amazon. You'll for sure save a few minutes. But for this one, the one that's homemade, I bet most of you probably have a good amount of the ingredients already in your cabinets or refrigerator, maybe minus the tahini, which is no big deal. But at the end of the day, you know exactly what's in that sauce. And for me, I love knowing what's in my food. It's important. All right, enough preaching from Pastor Bill. Before we get into the pork, here's a cool bit of history. This dish was actually born in 1899 at a Tokyo spot called Rengete. It was right after Japan opened its borders during the Meiji era. Chefs started blending European techniques with Japanese flavors, and out of that came yoshoku, a cuisine of Western dishes reimagined for the Japanese table. I love that food always carries a story, but now let's get back to cooking. Time to bring out some of the pork. And I've got 6 boneless, thick-cut pork chops. However, slicing a pork shoulder or even pork tenderloin will work for this recipe. Alright, a little trick to keep our pork nice and flat as it fries up. There's some connective tissue and oftentimes a fat cap that runs on the outside of the pork. Now, whenever I use pork loin for whatever recipe, I always try to use that cut that's just a little bit closer to the pork shoulder, and you'll easily be able to tell the difference in these. They'll be light pink and dark pink. They have a lot more intramuscular fat, all that good marbling. That just means it's going to be juicier, it's going to be more flavorful, tender, all the things. For me, far superior than those center cuts. Just ask your butcher or anyone at the grocery store, and I swear they'll get it for you. What I'm going to do is make thin little slices, maybe only a 1/2 inch into the pork, but all the way through, and maybe every 1/2 inch or so. This will fan it out, break up that tissue, and after breading and frying, you'll have no idea that I even made these simple scores. It's awesome. Next up, I'm going to gently tenderize these in a plastic zip bag using a mallet. Not necessarily because they need to be more tender, because honestly, pork is already super tender, but more so for even cooking and to thin them out a bit. I want these to be about 3/4 of an inch thick. I think it's the perfect thickness, but you'll definitely see some that are thinner or even a bit thicker than mine. Now, if you happen to maybe be using a center cut of the loin and want to ensure it's tender no matter what, then you can use a jacquard tenderizer, also known as a bladed meat tenderizer. This will cut through all the connective tissues and fibers, breaking them up, and it'll make it more tender as it cooks while also compressing it down to thin it out. They say this can make loin cuts up to 50% more tender. I love this thing. Now once you're all wrapped up, let's just transfer the pork onto a rack over a sheet tray, and then using some paper towels, let's pat the pork dry on all sides. This will allow for the salt and pepper to adhere more evenly to the surface and make for a cleaner dredge when we hit it in the flour. But because I want to season and go right into the breading, I'm going to let these further air dry uncovered in the refrigerator while we prep up our standard breading procedure. But first I'm thinking I'm going to heat up some oil. In a large 7 or 8 quart pot, I'm filling it to the halfway mark with avocado oil. However, any high smoke point neutral flavored oil will absolutely work here. We're going to turn the heat up to medium-ish and get it and hold it at 350 degrees F. Now at some of the most famous tonkatsu shops, they add a little rendered lard or bacon fat to the oil to make it more umami with just a hint of smokiness. So when in Rome, or I guess Tokyo, and in my case, Crown Point, Indiana, let's add 3 to 4 tablespoons, shall we? Just little techniques like this, it just makes better food. Alright, at this stage, let's assemble our breading station. I like using cake tins when doing this, but any large shallow bowl will work. I'm adding in a half cup of all-purpose flour, and then a half cup of potato starch. This starch will produce a crispier, more glassy crunch thanks to its high amylopectin content, which is just a complex carbohydrate. Mix them together until they're combined. Now in a separate cake tin, I'm adding in and whisking 3 large eggs until they're beaten and combined. And you'll notice that I'm not seasoning any of the breading procedures, but I'll explain where we get it from a little bit later. But first, or last in this case, I'm adding in 2 cups of Japanese panko breadcrumbs to a separate cake tin, and I'm sure I'll add a little bit more as I go. And as you can see, the panko crumb itself, it's bigger. I picked this up on Amazon, but you could absolutely get this large style at a local Asian market. I mean, just compare this to American panko. It's so much smaller. The large flakes will make a more airy crust, which will absorb less oil, making it lighter and crispier. However, traditionally in Japan, nama panko is used, which is a raw, undried Japanese milk bread known as shokupan. Now you can't buy this here in the States, but you could absolutely make it yourself if you want. Alright, let's get cooking. But first, let's break out our pork and give both sides a generous season of coarse salt and cracked pepper. Now when seasoning, be about a foot away so you can cover as much surface area as possible, ensuring every bite is delicious. And I also like to press in the seasoning because I want it in the pork before hitting it in the flour. And if you're looking to elevate the pork even a little bit more, you're going to have to plan ahead, because what you could do at this stage is place it in the refrigerator uncovered for 18 to 24 hours to dry brine it. Give that salt time to penetrate deep inside the pork, just making it juicier, more flavorful. But for me, I like this to be a little bit quicker recipe. I think that's how it was meant to be. So we're just going to salt and pepper and get ready to bread it up. Here we go. Let's line up our dry, wet, dry procedure and welcome in Dr. Chef Billy Parisi. Nice. First up, let's grab a loin chop and dredge it into the flour. Now be sure to rub that flour into the pork, covering it on all sides. This is a really crucial step to ensure we have perfectly breaded tonkatsu that adheres and stays. Dust off any excess, then go right into the egg wash and do the exact same technique. Coat it and cover it completely. It's important, and you've got this. Lastly, into the panko crumbs, give the pan a shake and transfer the crumbs around the outside and to the top. Gently press it down and get the pork coated up. I can't say it enough. Flip it over and repeat it. If you need to do it one or a few more times, so be it. Take a little extra time to make sure these are golden brown all over when cooked. It's just a simple way to show a bit of love, and I promise you, your people around the table will take notice.
Now, when I was doing my research and testing, I read in a few places that you could actually double bread this, and while it's not classic, I think we should give it a shot just to see if it's worth it. Who doesn't like crispier, crunchier, thicker crust? I do.
So from the panko, back to the egg wash until completely coated, then back to the panko. This thing is going to be ridiculous, I already know. Then we simply place all the breaded pork on a rack over a sheet tray. And at this stage, we're going to let them sit just like this for about 10 minutes or so. This will allow all the panko to hydrate a little bit more to adhere better to the pork, because it will give us a more even coating and crispier finish. This little tip is so simple but makes a big difference, and I'll show you why in a second.
But if you're thinking this feels like a breaded pork cutlet, you're right. Tonkatsu actually came from European classics like Austrian Wiener Schnitzel or the French côtelette. Alright, let's grab the pork, check our oil, and get ready to fry. We're right around that 350 degrees F mark, so now I'm going to gently add in a pork cutlet, and for sure you could add 2 at this time, and I'm going to cook it for roughly 2 minutes or even a bit less per side. Now when I add in the pork, I immediately turn the heat up a little bit because I want to maintain that 350 degrees F temp, because that cold pork is going to want to bring the temp down. And you should start to notice that after the first flip, that panko around the outside is going to start to brown up really nicely. You may also notice that we are losing maybe just a few panko crumbs during this fry. This is due to them sitting before frying and also having the oil temp in the right spot. These 2 things will guarantee you a crispy brown crust that does not fall off.
Now you want to keep that oil nice and hot because the goal here is to not only get a beautifully golden brown crust, but also to make sure it's perfectly cooked in the inside. So we're looking at 135 to 140 degrees F. That's where we want to pull it to get that awesome brown, juicy, tender perfection, my friends. I promise you can do this.
And once it's done, and oh my gosh, it looks awesome. We're going to set it upright on a rack over a sheet tray, and I'm just going to lean it up against a ramekin, or a cup will do just fine. I do this so that the oil drains down the meat instead of collecting along the surface. Also, both sides will be equally exposed to the air so that the crust dries and firms evenly. It'll keep the panko from compressing and can stop the carryover cooking a bit more quickly so that it's perfectly cooked. And then just repeat the process until all the pork is done cooking. And no worries about a crust falling off or it staying warm while the others cook, you'll be good. But real quick, just look at the size difference of that double breaded pork. I mean, yeah, this is the one I'm gonna eat. Excellent. And when you're done and wondering what to do with the leftover oil, be sure to click in the top right corner and check out my lomo saltado video where I show you exactly how to clean it and keep it for some future fries. Okay, so while the pork is resting for a few more minutes, here's a little tip to make that cabbage even crispier. Simply submerge it in some ice water and let it sit for maybe just 3 or 4 minutes, nothing more. This will shock the edges, firming them up to make them extra fluffy and crunchy. It can also let out some of those raw sulfur compounds that can make it taste bitter, so it's just better. It's easy to do, and with the pork resting, it's perfect time to do it. Then just take it out and strain it. That's all it takes. Simple techniques for better food. Almost time to plate up.
And now if we were eating this in Tokyo, there'd actually be a few more things that would be classically served up with tonkatsu.
You definitely won't see tonkatsu served in Tokyo without miso soup. You can grab that recipe at the link to my website in the top corner. So good. Next, Japanese mustard is commonly served on the side. It's a bit sharper and kind of like a combo of Dijon with a little bit of horseradish. You can actually use it as is or mix it into some of the tonkatsu sauce. Then you'd see some pickles. Alright, enough blabber, let's go. We're going to slice the pork into roughly 1-inch thick slices, and oh my goodness, so crunchy, so juicy. I know this is going to be dang tasty. Then let's lay a bed of the shredded cabbage onto a plate, fan out that beautiful pork just slightly over the top of it. Now, you may have noticed earlier I only season the pork before breading. Well, traditionally, you would garnish the finished cutlet with just a little more salt. In this case, I'm using Himalayan salt. For the cabbage, a little lemon wedge, or one-up it with some sesame vinaigrette, and then finally, that tonkatsu sauce. What could be better than this? Seriously, one of my favorite dishes.
And now, you've got to try one of my all-time favorite Japanese dishes, teriyaki. And I've got a traditional recipe waiting for you, so click over and I'll see you there. That sauce, bro. Yo. Oh. Just flavor. Just constant. That crisp. Bro. Yum.